Hi, good evening, everyone. Please, can someone help me confirm if I'm being heard?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much, Alia. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're all welcome to today's class. I must commend you all who are present on this call for being this punctual and being in class by this time, right? So, as usual, what we do is we give 5 minutes for others to join us. So we're going to continue in 5 minutes. Let's give others the grace of 5 minutes for them to join us. Then we'll get started. Our facilitator is already in class, so let's just wait for 5 minutes for others to join. Then we continue from there. Thank you.
Hello, peace. Is the PowerPoint available? Can you see it?
No, it
No,
is.
no.
Okay. Give me a second.
Okay, it's 5:05 already. Edie, are you still trying to sort the PowerPoint out, or we should go ahead? Can anyone hear me? Can someone confirm I am being
Yes,
heard, please?
you can just go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So once again, we're all welcome to today's class. So my name is Peace Dukas, and I am your moderator for today's class. And if you just joined the class, so if you haven't taken attendance, that's written your name in the chat box. And please, you should go back and do that, right? So today we are going to be looking at the executive, and we have our facilitator in the house already. So before we get started, I'm going to introduce our facilitator, and I'm going to be reading a brief profile, our facilitator's brief profile. So let's listen attentively before we pass the mic to our facilitator. So our facilitator for today is Kunle Lawal. Kunle Lawal is an entrepreneur, idea generator, politician, TEDx speaker, and patriot. He has a keen eye for opportunities based on his experience in politics, working with non-governmental organizations and the federal government. He's passionate about Nigeria and is what could be termed a detribalized Nigerian. He considers his boundaries to be limitless and is really focused on changing the Nigerian narrative in political participation. He currently serves as the executive director of the Electoral College Nigeria. Kunle Lawal was a once acting national publicity secretary of Kowa Party. In his time there, built 6 state structures and developed the e-membership system, which fetched you an e-membership card in 2 minutes and conducted the only e-election in a political party ratified by INEC. FCT Alliance for New Nigeria senatorial candidate 2019, and apart from having a phenomenal race, ran with 49 pieces of legislation, which he hoped to use when he won, has since transitioned to a non-partisan influential player in politics and electoral matters in Nigeria. As the Electoral College Nigeria, which he founded as Africa's first school of politeracy and governance, he has trained over 10,000 Nigerians for free on a 28-course model spanning politics and governance, has worked on interventions for the Electoral Act 2022 and a few other legislations. Kunle Lawal is one of the most televised Nigerians and key to issues of national discourse, and more so explanations on legislations, governance, and policy. Please, with a warm round of applause, which I know that I am not going to hear that from your end because your mics are mute. Let's welcome our facilitator for today, nobody but the Executive Director of Electoral College Nigeria, in person of Kunle Lawal. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Peace. And when you people make these intros, I hope this is the last introduction we're going to have for this cohort. I think sometimes I wonder who you're talking about. Anyway, it's always great. This is the first class I'm going to be addressing for the 13th cohort. So it's great to welcome you all to the Electoral College. Give me a second.
Okay, so before the ED comes back, before our facilitator comes back, please, if you have any questions, you can, in the course of the class, you can just pen them down, or you can drop them in the chat box. When he's done, we'll take questions.
Okay, so thank you very much. We can deal with the questions in the chat box. I think, Peace, we also will be open to asking questions directly if we're going to have this conversation. So I'd like to welcome the 13th cohort. It's a privilege to have you guys. You're the 13th in the set of Politeracy and Governance 101, which the Electoral College instituted some years back. The Electoral College is about 4 years old. And in that time, we've instituted 13 cohorts, and we hope that you guys will go across this about 28 course module, and we'll get to understand what we deem politics and governance in Nigeria. So without much ado, I'll move. So today's topic will be the executive. Now, the executive, of course, is one of the most talked about levels of government, and most of the time This is where everybody chooses to start their conversations from the executive, especially at federal government level. The president is probably the most targeted human being in any country across the world. Citizens learn to demand so much from the president. Excuse me. The average person gets to demand so much from the president, but we'll try to move on and try to explain. So I'll welcome you all once again to the 13th cohort, and welcome to the executive. So the executive, of course, is the primary function of the executive is to enforce laws, maintain law and order in the state, and execute governance on behalf of other arms of governance. Now, what other arms of governance do we have? We, of course, have the legislative, and then we have the judiciary. You'll be going over these courses, so we're going to just deal with the executive exactly today. And so the primary function of the executive. Now, most people like to ask, okay, the executive enforce laws, maintain law and order in the state, and execute governance on behalf of other arms of governance. So just for the benefit or for the clarification, the judiciary is there to interpret the laws of a country, and that is laws set by, of course, the legislative. Now, the legislative's job is to make laws, amend laws, etc., and provide oversight on the executive. But you'll be doing this in other courses going down the line. So that's the basic definition of the executive. So I would go into its function. So the first would be the enforcement of laws. Now, the enforcement of laws is, of course, vested in the executive based on powers guaranteed by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, enforcement of laws, everybody will look at it and say, okay, they enforce laws. What exactly are you trying to say? So first and foremost, laws are made by the executive, interpreted by the judiciary, and of course executed by the executive, hence the name executive execute. Now, the enforcement of these laws come across on quite a lot of levels. So first and foremost, you have let me just give an example of enforcement of these laws. So it was up to the National Assembly to say, okay, proceeding very soon, local governments, 774 local governments of Nigeria are about to be made autonomous. And with autonomy comes also the immunity clause for local government chairmen. So we're conversant, we have 774 local government chairmen. So, and of course, when we're talking of the executive, I need to critically, okay, so I skipped this part. The executive functions on the federal, state, and local level. So at the federal level, you have the president and the vice president as the executive. These are elected executive I'm discussing. Further down the line on this conversation, we'll talk about appointed executive also. So you have the president and the vice president. On the state level, you have the governor and the deputy governor. On the local level, you have the chairperson, and the vice chairperson. So enforcement of laws, of course, is given to this. So as I was saying, 774 local governments are about, National Assembly is about or has passed that they have been made autonomous. Now, the enforcement of these laws will be left to the executive. INEC right now is about to take over all local government elections, which means state electoral commissions will become null and void out of the fact they would have nothing to do because their only job was to conduct local government elections. That's at councillor level and at local government level. Now, the job of the executive is to ensure that INEC pursues this, provides the funding provides funding, ensure that INEC's funding is, of course, open to cover this. The executive also would ensure that the autonomy, that's at the federal level, ensure that the autonomy is not impeached on by governors of the state. Appointment making is also a function of the executive. Now, appointment, we will now talk of the appointed executive. So if you're going to talk of the appointed executive on the federal level, you're going to talk of SSAs to the president, SA to the minister, that's special assistant to the minister. We're going to talk of personal assistants to the minister, the ministers themselves, DGs, heads of parastatals, secretaries of parastatals, etc., etc., etc. So those making are vested in the powers of the executive. Of course, they must be vetted by the legislative. So if it's on state level, if you appoint somebody as a commissioner, it has to be vetted by the State House of Assembly. If a local government chairman appoints somebody as the Secretary of Education, it has to be vetted by the councillors. If the president appoints somebody as minister, it has to be vetted by the National Assembly. We saw this go on, not too long ago when President Ahmad Bola Tinubu took over, and we saw this entire system work. Now, defense of the state. So appointment making is, let's not to talk about it. I believe it's quite an easy thing to scale through. Now, defense of the state. Defense of the state depends on what parameters. So we've spoken at local government level about executives, and we mentioned local government chairman. We've spoken at state level, and we've mentioned deputy governor and governors. We've spoken about at the federal level, president and vice president. Now, defense of the state is vested in this elected executives parameters. Now, the elected executive are in charge of security according to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at any of the levels or jurisdictions they govern or control. Meaning, if something happened in Etiosa, whether it was, and I'm using Etiosa as a critical example because I want to bring up the NSAS situation. So if something happens in Etiosa, and this was the situation which occurred, a situation which referred to defense of the state within Etiosa, most people would have called on the governor of Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu, pointing directly, but constitutionally, you were actually supposed to point at the LCDA or local government chairman of Etiosa, who's in charge of security within that particular jurisdiction. And according to the Constitution, we need to understand that bridges, toll gates, markets are also under the jurisdiction of local government chairman according to the Constitution. Now, I'm just opening what defense is. And, there's the constant argument that everybody wants to say, we need state police. The argument is always this. We already have a federal police, and everybody argues for state police. So let's look at federal police as the roof of a building. Let's look at state police as the windows and maybe the doors. But the question is, where's the foundation? So there's no country as large as Nigeria across the world that doesn't have community policing. You see that in movies you watch, American movies you watch. You see the office of the sheriff. Now, the sheriff, of course, is county, which is local government. I don't think Nigeria can safeguard itself or will be able to. And this is debatable. So I'm not giving an order that this is what is. But I'm saying that Nigeria might not be able to guarantee its citizens' security till it effectively provides for community policing or local government policing. The reason is already as governors are, I will not say, or will say quite a situation in states will be kidnap of the state legislature by governors and also kidnap of the judiciary by governors. Though the judiciary has been made independent and we're preceding the autonomy of the local government, which is about to be passed or has been passed by the National Assembly. But they also have them in their pocket. If you now guarantee state police, you will now be empowering governors far beyond measure to become emperors in the state. And I would not say they aren't already mini emperors. Now, another function of the executive is foreign policy making. Now, this will be referring to only at federal level. Now, the federal level determines the kind of foreign policy Nigeria has. But going back to 1963, when Tafawa Balewa was prime minister, Nigeria has remained Nigeria's basic foreign policy is Nigeria's non-aligned nation, meaning we do not side with the Eastern or Western Bloc. Now, the Eastern Bloc will, of course, refer to states like Russia, China. The Western Bloc, of course, will be referred to as Britain, the UK, and the United States of America. or anybody in alliance with those. So foreign policy, Nigeria's basic foreign policy is that we remain non-aligned in all situations. Now, non-aligned critically means we are not for or with anybody. And I'd like to borrow President Muhammadu Buhari's statement, which was actually culminated from, I think, someone bigger's statement, which was I am for everybody and I am for nobody. So that's Nigeria's position in the Committee of Nations. We are for everybody and we are for nobody at the same time. There are also financial functions which are vested in the executive. Now, financial functions are vested in the executive, might be divulged when you come to like at federal level. So at federal level, these things are divulged to ministers, director generals, secretaries of agencies, parastatals, etc. These financial functions allow them to discharge money. Remember that the executive oversight lies with legislative, which you of course will be discussing in another class. So, but these financial functions are of course guided by legislative preceding a budget. So when the budget is out, the legislative has of course sat down and overviewed the general financial capabilities of the executive and given them. At the state level, of course, security votes, state FAC allocations, that's federal government allocations coming from them. At local level, FAC allocations coming from them. Now, if everybody's going to ask what FAC allocation is, so it's the federal allocation which comes from being part of Nigeria. Let's just say if you're part of Nigeria and Nigeria earns, give or take, $20 billion, it's mandated that everything is shared across federal, state, and local. So states get their share, federal get their share, and local does get its share. Now, that's the operational funding of what executives will be able to discharge their duties and which are already dictated by the budget from the National Assembly or from the State House of Assemblies or in the local government from councillors. Now, I know most people will look at it and say, councillors, what they really do? Councillors are the legislative arm of the local government. I know it's kind of hard for most people to understand this because there's a culture of dysfunctionality in Nigeria. But we here at the college will stick to what the Constitution actually says and what should be, not the culture of what is. So those financial functions are also granted the executive. Now, grants of titled owners are also vested in the executive. We've seen states commemorate great individuals. No offense if they come from Big Brother, but we've seen federal to commemorate quite great people with, of course, different awards, which is the MON, the MFR, Member of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Member of the Order of Nigeria, and of course, presidents, people who become presidents are conferred with the highest CFR. And these are titled honors from the state of Nigeria, which is what you call the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And the executives vested with these functions. Moving on. So we go into governance. And of course, governance is the way and manner in which power is exercised in the management of the country's human, material, and economic resources. Now, this is the particular determinant of how the executive functions at whether it's local level, state level, or at federal level. And this is what pushes the needle on whether you say you have a good government or a bad government. So governance, of course, like we said, is the way things are, management of human resources. Now, a lot of people would have disagreed and said, yeah, we understand the fuel subsidy issue, which President Bola Ahmed Tinubu took out immediately stepped into office. People felt it was quite harsh. But if you ask yourself a question on the broader plane, what's going to happen to you is that you're going to start to see why it was done. Number one, let's start from the beginning. First and foremost, the top 6 presidential candidates stated they were going to take out subsidy. If I'm right, the Labour Party presidential candidate was the only one that said he was going to remove it out from day one. And that was his mantra. Every other person said they were removing it immediately. They didn't state when. I think it was only Labour Party that stated on the first day. Now, when you look at this, that subsidy was removed, you ask, what did Nigeria gain? Now, I'll tell you that states and local governments have been receiving, since fuel subsidy has been removed, more than 25% of what they used to receive in FAC allocations. Let's remember that subsidy was costing Nigeria about 460 billion naira per month. And the question I think citizens have not asked themselves is, what exactly is being done with the excesses which they now have within their jurisdiction. So we'll go to types of executive, and I think I pointed this out earlier. So they are elected executive and they are appointed executive. So we'll go from the ground up. Elected executive at the local government level will be, of course, be the local government chairperson and the vice chairperson. At the local level, you have secretaries of education, health, security, youth and sports, depending, or youth and sports, or youth or sports, and infrastructure, etc., etc. These are elected by. These are, of course, the elected, of course, appoint the appointed. And when we take that to state level, we now come to SAs to the governor, SAs to commissioners, etc., who are the appointed executive. The governor and deputy governor remain the elected executive. We have commissioners, secretaries of different parastatals within the state, etc. When you come to the federal level, you have the president and the vice president. Appointed, you have ministers, you have DGs, like I've said, secretaries of commissions and etc. And then you have SAs to ministers and whatever. So those are types of executives that exist within the executive structure. Now, a common question, which of course the average citizen has, is how to achieve a functional executive. The first thing is that you cannot have a functional executive without separation of powers. And that is separation of powers between the arms of government. And that would be between the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. Now, if this separation is not done, you're going to have people infringing on other parameters which are for others' functions. Now, you cannot have, I'll give an example. Constituency projects are non-constitutional. They're not backed by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So what you have is senators and House of Representatives, and then State House of Assembly infringing on work to be done by the local government chairman, councillors also, and etc. So that infringement doesn't allow for quite a functional democracy in Nigeria, because it's legislative adopting executive powers, which in other climes, I wouldn't want to say US, in other climes anywhere, even in Africa, are not granted. Legislative should never have executive powers. The executive has, but within the executive, they have legislative powers at times. The president is allowed to issue, and state governors are also allowed to issue an executive order, which is, but must, these executive orders and must be backed by either the State House of Assembly or the National Assembly after the president has put them out. If they're not backed by that, is the executive order will be thrown out. A good example will be Executive Order 10 of 2020, which was autonomy of local governments by President Muhammadu Buhari. And the case went to the National Assembly. The National Assembly, of course, had to go through the State House of Assemblies before it reached its verdict, and the State House of Assemblies threw it out, and the National Assembly had to throw it out. So the executive order became null and void shortly after it was passed by the president. So even the president's legislative powers kind of are limited to still the actions of the National Assembly and State House of Assemblies in Nigeria. A functional executive can only function properly if there's decentralization. Now, everybody looks up to the president. The president is not in charge of your dustbins in Lekki or your dustbins in Bakassi, or your dustbins in Terminus in Jos, or your dustbins in Costain in Kaduna. They are not in charge of that. They're also not, going to handle refuse in Afikpo in Ebonyi State. This decentralization of powers within the executive is what allows the local government chairman to have his particular jurisdiction, what allows the state governor to have his particular jurisdiction, and what allows the president to also have his own jurisdiction. So for a functional executive, there must be decentralization of powers from the center for a democracy to be able to function fully and properly. Now, one of the biggest problems in Nigeria is crisscrossing this line. State governors infringing on local government functionality, or federal infringing on state functionality. This decentralization, of course, has complicated democracy in Nigeria and has also confused the electorate. Now, the electorate is not sure where exactly it's supposed to stand, because the electorate looks at it like, if this one has infringed, it has become a culture. That means the president or the state governor is in charge of, let's say, a small bridge or boreholes. A governor is not supposed to be discussing or having anything to do with boreholes. That's the truth, because that power is actually vested in local government in which he wants to execute them. But, well, let's just say some states do have them. I don't want to mention any states. Now, a functional executive must be held to accountability by the legislative. For you to have a functional executive, there must be a legislative that holds them. Most of us are guilty of saying, rubber stamp National Assembly, rubber stamp National Assembly. I'll be honest with you, as much as we would like to say the National Assembly is rubber stamp, I'll tell you the executive does not get away with quite a lot of things. It gets away with some things, but not everything. There's that, yes, could the legislative do more? Yes. Could the executive do more without tramping into the legislative or buying it in? Yes. But the democracy is, of course, a negotiation between all the arms of government for the betterment of the people. So sometimes when they look at it, that this particular thing they're putting on the table is going to be better, quite a lot better, and they don't want to go into the modeling of the dirty politics. Sometimes these arms come together and say, okay, you know what, let's get this done. And that is when, of course, we call them rubber stamp. Sometimes this might not be about betterment of the citizenry themselves, but that's another conversation. But the executive must be held accountable by the legislative, even by the Constitution. The only people who can impeach the executive, that power lies in the legislative. So the National Assembly can impeach the president, State House of Assembly can impeach a governor, and the councillors can take out a local government chairperson. But we still look at that. The rule of law is also very, 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 very strong tenet in the functionality of an executive. So the rule of law is key to how everybody operates within the system. If there's no respect of rights and of any individual, it's going to, of course, come into governance. And when it comes into governance, it is going to end up being quite a sham on how things are actually being done. Another key function of the executive is the ability to plan. And we've had so many plans in Nigeria: Vision 2020, Vision 20, I've forgotten, something 2010, then something 2000. I was a little young then, something 2000. But this was an attempt by the executive to take Nigeria to a particular place. But this is us discussing federal. Let's come down to states. There always has to be planning. What does this state want to achieve in the next 10 years? I'll tell you, one of the problems we've had is continuity. Now, let's use an example. Let's say Cross River. Cross River, in the first 8 years of democracy, Cross River was netting about $1 million from tourism alone, and that has dropped significantly. Cross River didn't concentrate on the roads that are coming to Calabar. They didn't concentrate on air flights into Calabar. They didn't concentrate on development within the Calabar municipal and etc., which of course will end up destroying or killing the particular the particular tourism drive they wanted to have. And for that is poor planning. So subsequent governments, which are the Imoke government, the Ayade government, and now, of course, the O2 government, which is trying to bring back that thing. It's going to be quite a long journey. So the Ayade and the Imoke government ensured that things like TINAPA, which we were looking forward to, and FTZ, that's a free trade zone, and we're looking forward to, were not met. And of course, that's poor planning by an executive. So an executive can only be functional if he plans far ahead into the future or the betterment of its people. Now, in trying to enhance a functional legislative, a few salient points. The first one would be participation. Now, if I asked everybody in a party here, so there are 58 people here, if I asked, I could take out, let's say 3 minutes out of this. Now ask, all of you love this country, right? So I'll get a lot of thumbs up. How many of you are in a political party? How many of you know the budget of your state? How many of you know the IGR and the FAC allocation of your local government? But we all scream we want Nigeria to be better. How many of you know the exact jurisdictions of what a governor can do, what a senator can do, what local government chairman can do, what a councillor can do? How many of you even knew that the councillor was legislative, preceding I mentioned it in this class? And those are the kind of questions we would love to answer. Peace, are you there? Peace, you're moderating. Hello?
Yes, Edie, I'm
Peace,
here.
Okay, can you unmute Yakubu Ali, who raised his hand? Let's hear what he has to say.
Okay. Yakubu, you can unmute.
Hello.
Good day, Yakubu.
Good day. Sorry for the interruption. I thought you were asking if we should raise our hands if we are we are members of political party.
Okay. Since you are a member of a political party and you are proud and you raised your hand, I want to ask what party. Did you participate in any primaries? Were you able to make it as a delegate?
I am a member of APC.
No, I didn't ask what party. I wasn't
I
asking what party it was. I said, were you able to participate in any primaries? Were you able to make it as a delegate?
Yes.
Yes.
I
hope you voted what was best for your community and not what everybody or who gave you the most yeah?
And for my conscience, sir.
Are you sure you voted your conscience?
Definitely.
You're not saying that for the class. Anyway, that's a prop if you voted for your conscience. Yeah. Thank you very much for being a participatory Nigerian in the democratic structure. Thank you very much, sir. So I'll proceed with what I was talking about. So participation is quite key for a functional executive. We need to participate in the system. We need to understand what needs to be done. We need to, I think there's another hand up, Peace. Hello, Peace, are you there? Maureen.
Hello.
I've asked him to
in a dance election, I have experienced election. Good day, sir.
Good day. What's
in the
your
dance
name,
election,
please?
My name is Eligbaju Michael.
Okay,
Michael.
Go ahead.
Yes. In the dance election, I've experienced our country in the diasporas of Nigeria, Federation Republic, but I'm a youth to cover all the election aspects and start as a new election dependent to offer the Nigerian youth in public administration side.
Okay, I didn't quite get what you said. So I was talking about participation, but I didn't understand what you said.
Okay.
So did you participate in the last election?
Yes. Yes, sir.
What did you participate in? What part did you play?
Yeah, I played the part of the categories of our constituency, and I I was never allowed to vote because we have a lot of groups that are new to the constituency, and our political leader was an adult, and we couldn't use that influence. We have influencer, but and the managed units we could have is only the capital, federal capital, so which we could not access the other time, sir.
Okay.
So
Well
after
done, bro.
effects, another 4 years, we have a federal capital. We have to follow up and make sure that there is possibility, and we could do much better in these governments.
Okay, sorry,
Okay.
Elu Baju. Sorry to chip in, right? If you have any contributions or questions, we'll take that at the end of the class. We are just allowed to respond to questions from the ED, like pertaining the class for now. But once we're done, we'll take comments and questions. ED, you can go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, please. Next will be, so we spoke about participation, and of course, participation is key into achieving a functional executive. Please, could you mute him, please? Thank you. So it's key to participation. So next, accountability, budgeting, and planning. I mean, others accountability in budgeting. Now, most of the time, we've seen funny things happen in the executive. We've seen poor accountability in budgeting. We've seen what we'll call white elephant projects. We've seen what we would not want to be a part of. You know, sometimes websites for government parastatals costing more than websites for the CIA or the MI5. Accountability has been poor. We're very key. We're very conversant with the case with the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, in which breaking financial regulations of public service officers, quite a lot of money was paid from the government account into a private account, breaking, I think, rule, I think 15 or rule 14, 15 or 16, financial regulations of Public Procurement Act. Planning also, like I've mentioned, has when I've broken down planning, it's also necessary for enhancing a functional executive. Where do we want to go? What do we want to do? How do we want to do it? When do we hope to achieve it? What's the shortest time frame? Well, how are we going to get it done? These are things we've never looked into. A functional executive too could be enhanced by financially unattractive offices. Now, we had this conversation yesterday, so I'd like to sit down in the conversation today. By financially unattractive offices, we don't mean they don't earn anything. It means that what they earn should not be in excess of what the country can afford. So you can't earn more than a country whose GDP is 10 times more than Nigeria as a lawmaker in Nigeria. It doesn't make sense, especially when we have a constitution. And one of the biggest problems of our constitution is not that. So anybody that tells you, and I'll say this here, and you can take this to the back, anyone that tells you that the Nigerian constitution is flawed is someone who hasn't read the constitution. So it's not that our constitution is flawed. Our constitution is 1999. A lot has happened in democracy in the world between 1999 and now. So it is the job of the National Assembly to have been amending the constitution to suit the present time and plane of what Nigeria actually is. And if they've not done that with the amounts they are being paid, then we do not have a clearly functional system. Why should we offer 1.2 million in newspaper allowances? Nobody does that. So we need to make these offices a little bit more financially unattractive, so that the people that can get there, or the people that have the heart to do what was right, can actually get there. A functional executive will also be good with freedom of speech. But remember, I always warn about this. I remember sometime in 2016, 2017, there was going to be a social media bill. I spoke against it. I shouted. I was younger then. If the older me now was there then, I'd have said, okay, you know what? We can still have a social media act, but it shouldn't be restricted. But it should be cautionary. Because with time and with work I've done across systems and with laws I've worked on, etc., I have found out that people assume freedom of speech to mean you can infringe on the fundamental rights of any other person. That's not freedom of speech. That's a crime. Freedom of speech doesn't mean you can say anything. Freedom of speech actually means if you're going to criticize, criticize. It's allowed to criticize the government. You can say, okay, this policy I do not think is good or in the best interest of Nigeria. Or if I don't think it's the best interest of Nigeria, this is. Not anybody in APC is a thief. Anybody in PDP is a thief. Anybody in Labour Party is tribally misogynist, or what they call it, tribally slanted, etc., etc. Those are not common conversations. That's not freedom of speech. That's a crime. You're infringing on someone's fundamental rights. Person's right to of course express himself. Person's right to participate in any democracy or anything. So I've always said freedom of speech terminates at the point that it infringes on another person's fundamental human rights. Now, to enhance a functional executive, we also would need an understanding by the electorate of elected office jurisdiction and powers. The Electoral College clearly sets down that Nigeria is, or Nigerians are 82% politically illiterate, which is why we do what we're doing. And we also project about 72, 71% of those in elected office also are politically illiterate. Now, this might sound funny, but generally Nigerians are politically illiterate. We've created a culture outside politics, followed that culture, and made that culture law. Culture is not law. I think one of the smartest Scottish philosophers said, give me the tunes of a civilization and I will dictate their laws. Give me the folk laws. As of then, folk laws were how civilizations transferred information coming from, their history and etc. to other generations. So if you intercept a folklore and you alter it a bit, it will affect how the other generation thinks of laws, thinks of itself, and how it even sees itself. Now, what are the folklores of our present time? Things like social media. That's the folklore of our present time. Everybody knows if you interrupt social media, like there was a party, I think, by Aisha Chimugu, who's an industrialist, which, it's common. I've seen a lot of social media talk. First ones, they've called her Sanwo-Olu's girlfriend because Governor Sanwo-Olu was her granada. I've seen people call her Tinubu's daughter. This is someone who threw a party when she was 14 in Abuja, and she's always been, within the social circles of Abuja. And, it's surprising to hear people talk about these things this way. So most of the electorate do not even understand the jurisdictions of the office of the president, not understand the jurisdictions of the office of the senator, not understand the jurisdiction or functionality of local government chairmen, state house of assembly, governors, and deputy governors. And therein lies the problem. So you cannot have a democracy if you have an uneducated electorate. And uneducated does not mean you did not go to school. It does not mean you did not read government or public administration or whatever. But it means that you do not understand how these roles function or how these elected positions function in a democracy. And therein lies the problem. So the executive is the steering wheel of governance, and its operation signals development or degradation of any community. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure having this conversation, and I will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edie, for the powerful session. It's always an honor to be in class during your sessions. Okay, so this is what we're going to be doing. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand, indicate by raising up your hand. I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask your questions. So if you have any questions, you can start indicating by raising your hand. But before then, we have some questions in the chat box. So I'm going to take the first question here. Okay, the first question says, what is the function of Nigerian Youth Parliament? What is the function of Nigerian Youth Parliament, and how can Nigerian youth be in the parliament? Did you get that, Edie?
Okay. First and foremost, I'm not conversant fully with how the Nigerian youth, I don't know everything. I'm not conversant with how I know the Speaker of the Nigerian Youth Parliament. I know it's a voluntary organization. I know it's an attempt to involve the youth within governance. But your question, please read the question again. Just skip my mind a bit. Read the question again, please.
Okay, what is the function of Nigerian Youth Parliament, and how can Nigerian youth be in the parliament?
Okay, I can't answer how they'll be in parliament. I know that if you participate, I can get you to the speaker, and maybe you could have that conversation with her. So I don't look at myself as a Nigerian youth. I left that like it would take 12 years ago. So I think it's just an attempt, to have a youth voice and a strong point to be able to negotiate governance with the government. And I think that's what they do. And they do quite some education across the youth parliament to help prepare them for governance in the future or political positions in the future.
Okay, thank you so much, Edie, for that. And I also think that to be part of the Nigerian parliament, they always have an opening, right? Like they open up registrations where you can register to be part of it, and then you get screened, and if you're accepted, fine. If you're not, you try another time. So we're taking our next question. The next question here is, I'm going to be taking the questions from the chat box, and then I'll be unmuting others to speak. So we'll be changing to attend to all questions. So the next question here is, in types of executives, this question is from Uyore Justin Agogo. Sorry if I murder your name. In types of executives, you mentioned elected and appointed. I understand that the role of the traditional rulers in Nigeria, especially at level of the chiefs and the clan heads, is not directly enshrined in the constitution. However, they play a significant role in the society and governance, mediating disputes, maintaining cultural and social norms, and advising the government. Can we situate them in the realm of the executive?
No, you cannot. They are not enshrined in the constitution, so you can't borrow them into anywhere. Religious leaders, that's why a governor can remove the emir of Kano. We've seen it happen multiple times. So as much as we respect them, for now they're a cultural position. They are not like the House of Lords in the UK, who have a particular house and remain there by virtue of title. Those titles are strictly, that's why governors appoint and governors can remove. Yeah, so you cannot call them executive by any parameter, no matter how big they are.
Okay, so the same person, his second question is, to achieve a functional executive, separation of power is pivotal. And the executive arm plays the maintenance and enforcement functions. When there is conflict of law interpretation between the executive and the judiciary, especially in matters not constitutionally covered, how does government navigate? Let me take the question again, Edie. To achieve a functional executive, separation of powers is pivotal, and the executive arm plays the maintenance and enforcement functions. When there is a conflict of law interpretation between the executive and the judiciary, especially in matters not constitutionally covered, how does government navigate?
That's why you have the legislative. The legislative will sit down and pass a law that will amend or cover such situation. That's the only out. I don't think there's ever an issue. The courts are final interpretation of the Constitution. The executive does not interpret the Constitution. They follow what interpretation the judiciary provides. So if there's a rare chance like that occurring, the onus will be on the legislative to come up with an amendment that suits stability for the country in best ways possible.
Okay. Thank you, Edie, for that. Dami Ogunke, you can unmute and ask your question.
Hey, how are you? Funny enough, I'm calling from London, so I'm participating from London. So I joined to get a wider landscape of the Nigerian political sphere. I wanted to ask, in terms of the conversation around devolution of power to the states, and then obviously enforcing the constitution as it's been written, what's your view, and what do you suspect to be the way it's going to translate in terms of the functionalities? What's going to particularly change from what the governors can currently do to what the constitution says they can do? That's my question.
Wait, I didn't quite catch you. I lost you a little bit. Could you take that again?
Sure. So there's a conversation currently of devolution of powers to the states.
Yeah.
And obviously, from what has been written in the Constitution to what is currently being practiced is not the reality of devolution of power, right? So technically, in terms of the technical responsibilities, what will be a before? What would a before and after look like when those powers are devolved, are spread across the states? And also what functions would be lost from the executive, if you get what I mean?
Okay, what functions will be lost from the executive, or what functions will be lost from the governor?
Yeah, so obviously what functions will be translated?
Because the local government too is still executive. Local government chairperson is executive. So you can't say what powers will lost.
So what would you say are the big differences of what is being clamored for?
So for me, the big differences will be first, distribution of FAC allocation. That's the money that comes into local governments now will not come into a kitty that belongs to the entire state, but will go directly to the particular local government. That is key. Secondly, security of the local government will be vested in the local government chairperson, which means local governments will be forced to generate or to find security solutions for problems within their local governments. But thirdly, what I think is the game changer is that INEC now will be conducting elections for local government chairpersons, thereby reducing state governors' powers on effects of who appears or represents a particular local government within the state. These are three key things I think would be able to alter. There would be more, but off the top of my head right now, those are the first three things I can come up with.
Okay, Dami, did you get that? Has your question been answered? Okay, Saeed Mohammed, you can unmute and ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for this opportunity. My question is, what advice can you give to a Nigerian youth who is passionate about making a positive difference in the political arena, but not interested in being a member of any political party?
Well, I think I resonate with that. I'm not a member of a political party. We set up the Electoral College. We've done quite a lot of work. I didn't say you should do what I'm doing, but you can pick a struggle. Come on. So I'm not interfacing from a political angle, but I'm also interfacing with governance from a non-partisan angle and with Nigeria as my goal. So I think the choice is yours. You don't need to join a political party, or you don't need to run for office. There are other effective roles you can play within the CSO space or just as an actual Nigerian? I think Dami has a follow-up question, please. And you muted him.
Okay, I didn't mute him. Let me unmute. Let me ask him to unmute. Okay, you can unmute, Dami.
Yeah, sorry, you muted just at the wrong time when I was about to.
Oh,
But yeah,
sorry.
no, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. Funny enough, the person before, I think his name was Ahmed, took the question. I think for especially for people in the diaspora where we watched the election pan out, very messy, from our view, if you get what I mean. Having people on ground and also wanting to eventually be on ground, within the sphere. I think my view is, as an economist looking into policy, where do you believe stuff like advisory from non-governmental players and like lobbyist groups in terms of mainly policy come in, and how can we increase that voice, and how do we increase that influence in, from a people's perspective, not just on a oh, this is a board of people in this industry and it's talking about policies that's affecting. How do we increase that voice of like lobbyist groups and advisory groups to the executive and arms?
So what has been prevalent in Nigeria has always been the fact that we have lobbyist groups. We have people in the civic space, but they are not politically educated enough to choose a direction for policy.
Yeah.
So you have people arguing, and I've been in meetings, you have people arguing that parties should no longer be political parties should no more be registered in CAC. And these are quite large CSOs. And then you wonder, okay, but political parties are not registered in CAC, they're registered in INEC. And you see where the whole thing misses. And then, you have several conversations. Like, I'll tell you a funny conversation I think is being had, and this might not go down well with a particular agenda, but it's the truth. So you want to create special seats for women. How does that make, please, there's no need to laugh. How does that make any relevance? Number one, the Constitution constitutionally protects the present seats available. So if you create any ad hoc seats for women, those seats will maybe, if the Senate votes, the entire set of women will have just one vote.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
How does that change anything politically?
Mm-hmm.
Now here's the catch. Once those seats are created, it means when they come to primaries in a political party, men will say, go and buy for the special seats. You don't belong here. So whether they like it or not, in the long run, they're creating more an anomaly because of their poor understanding of politics than they are trying to provide female representation in this thing. And for me, this goes down to the biggest problem in Nigeria, while civic groups are not able to make an impact, is they are politically not literate enough to engage on policy or direction, and also their initiatives are not as smart, because normally from an emotional perspective or from a perspective that they're trying to achieve a particular personal goal than they are trying to achieve a goal for the country.
Mm-hmm. And I know
that's what I think of it.
You have the confusion in terms of where to interface with the government and who and which channel. Obviously in the UK here, you can go through your councillor, you can go through your mayor, or you can go through your MP, right? And you know that when I make my connection, within maybe 2 to 3 working weeks, I'm going to get at least an acknowledgement. It doesn't seem to be that there seems to be a lot of, in quotes, politicking in terms of who knows who can get their meeting jumped up and all of that sort of stuff. So there's no actual systemized process of engagement in terms of people taking reports or people taking recommendations. It's literally about who serves as your advocate within the political space and who you've been vying for.
No. So Dami, so that we don't take too much time, you don't seize too much time, I'll just answer this and then go to other questions. So Dami, I'm going to say something. Now, we only discussed this in Nigeria from the political space. Let me ask a question. Have you ever written Coca-Cola Nigeria? Or have you ever written MTN Nigeria? Have you ever written Glow Nigeria? Have you ever written Mr. Biggs Nigeria on a particular matter or a subject issue or something that's a problem. Even to work within your bank, and that means I'm sure you have a bank account, you've had a Nigerian bank account, and you've had issues with money. How long did it take you to resolve it? It is a Nigerian problem. It's a culture of the Nigerian functionality, not necessarily a political problem.
Oh yeah, guaranteed.
So we feel,
So we
feel we don't owe anybody an explanation. And
sure.
in politics, I'm going to argue this, that if you've ever run for office, you will know why politicians do not answer Nigerians. So here is it: Nigerians take their breakfast from politics in the beginning. So let's give an example. You're a website builder. Let's give an example. You're a website builder. You're my friend. If I want you to build a website for me now, let's say for the Electoral College, and I talk to you, and you'd set up a website, it will probably cost me 150, 200. But the moment I declare I'm running for office, you will bill me 2.5 million. And then you want to enjoy the dividends of democracy after I've gone in. Come on. TV stations have me for free now. When they come over, they might even send a car in most cases. When they come to channels, come to Arise, come to whatever, to send a car. The moment I declare I'm running for office, I have to pay them to appear on those TV stations. Then when I get there, you want to hold me accountable for what? You've taken your dividend before I got into office. And that always is my argument, Dami. Thank you very much, Dami, for everything. Thank you very much, Dami.
Okay, thank you so much, Dami, for your question. So please, I'm going to take the next question from the chat box, but before we go back to those who would be speaking to ask their questions, please try as much as possible to keep it short. We have some interesting questions in the chat box, and I believe that if we're going to go by our own pace, then we might spend the whole day, take the whole night here. So please, let's try as much as possible to keep it short, as they say. Quick, others are waiting. Okay, so the next question here is from Precious Faith. How about earning commensurate to the work they do? I believe probably she's talking about cutting down cost of governance and then unattractive, making offices unattractive.
Okay, I can't really speak to that because for you to earn commensurate, let's be honest. The issue is never their salary. The salaries of people in National Assembly, I think the Senate is 500. The House of Representatives, I don't know whether it's for something. I can't remember the exact amount, but Senate is around 5 something. That's their salary. It's when you go into allowances that you have the issue of so much, where you can monies and then committees they are in could rise, put together could rise as much as 42 million per month. And let's be honest. When people say, let's cut down the cost of governance, are we as a people going to now say, we're going to stop going to House of Rep and Senators when our children fall ill? We're going to stop going to House of Rep and Senators when when we want to get married? I lived in Abuja. Let's say, there was a time where they used to live, which is legislative quarters. I used to stay in that particular area. And it wasn't an interesting thing. You wake up in the morning and you look across your neighbors. That was when senators still used to live within the legislative quarters. They've grown bigger now. But, when you see them, when you wake up in the morning, you have quite a horde of people. Secondary school classmates, their friends, they're people from their constituencies, etc. Long line outside. Why wouldn't they request more money and more allowances? Most of the time, if these people are actually your friends, when you see how much they give out in 24 hours, you know there's no other parameter than to provide for corruption. So the Nigerians mortgage their responsibilities in corruption for people in politics. But we also do not understand that we are feeders that direct corruption.
Okay.
Thank you, Peace. We can go to the next question.
Thank you so much, Edie, for that question. So this, we have 3 questions in one, and I believe they're related. This is from Sukumba Dauda. He says, hi, I like that you spoke earlier about separation of powers because my questions are surrounding a comment made by the FCT minister yesterday. Obviously, the FCT minister is an appointee of Mr. President. He said on Friday, no bail for kidnappers under my watch. Kidnapping is nasty menace that must be dealt with, but it must be in accordance with the law. Mr. Wike is a lawyer. He should know better, right? So my questions are, isn't bail a constitutional provision? Let me just take the three
Bill?
questions, Edie.
No. Let me answer one at a time. Please don't do that.
Okay.
If you take the three, I'll get confused. So the first one, isn't bill a constitutional
provision?
Bill. What are you talking about? The bill of kidnappers. That's what Wike said. Wait, it seems I've gotten confused. Wike said, and if I mark, no bail or whatever for kidnappers, right?
Yeah.
It's a constitutional provision. Wike is a lawyer. He's talking tough from a government position. But there are situations where, in some crimes, where government can choose to deny bail to particular citizens based on the gravity of the crime, especially with the fact that they're killing citizens and etc. So he's right and wrong at the same time, depending on the position of the government.
Okay, so the second question is, under what authority or powers does he intend to enforce such an action plan? Under what authority or power does he intend to enforce?
Wike is an appointee, not an elected position. He doesn't have the jurisdiction. His powers are subservient to the powers of the president, and the council chairman in Abuja supersede him on security control. Wike doesn't have such jurisdiction.
Okay, so the third question is, what are the limits of the powers of the FCT minister, and what checks exist to keep him or her from abusing their powers? I ask all this because the current occupant of the office has an outsized ego with a proclivity for abuse of power and influence. I mean, look at all the drama in Rivers State. So the question is, what are the limits of the powers of the FCT minister, and what checks exist to keep him or her from abusing their powers?
The minister serves as a cabinet member, and within the electoral college, I think you said this earlier, we're not emotional about anything, and we're not taking sides with anyone. So the minister serves as a member of the cabinet, serves at the pleasure of the president. He doesn't have an elected position, so his power over the FCT is kind of limited. He can allocate more money to security, but he cannot change the order of the security apparatus because of the IG, which exists in Abuja, the AMAC chairman, who's also with jurisdictional power. So the only executives in Abuja are the president, the 6 area council chairpersons. Those are the only executives. Abuja is full of 2 House of Rep and 1 senator who don't have executive power. So the executive functions are vested in. So Wike has the power, serving under the pleasure of the president, to tell area council chairmen to organize night watches, like he has said. But he cannot mandate or force them. They are in elected position. He's in appointed position. He can advise. He does not directly supersede the AMAC chairman. I'm going to give an example. It's not in Nigeria, but our laws are the same. So during COVID, President Trump said, his position on COVID. There's no COVID, there's no this, there's no that. You know what? Everybody can go out. And the White House is in Washington. Said everybody can go out, he's even going out. The mayor of Washington came out and said, there's COVID. Nobody's going anywhere. The president could not move. The mayor of Washington is like the local government chairman of Washington. So I'm trying to show you the president's power, local government chairman's power. The truth is that the AMAC local government chairman, because the state house is domiciled within his jurisdiction, it's a funny thing with the president. But in Nigeria, we respect things too much. We don't respect the order of things. We create another thing. So whatever is going on in Rivers State, and you're disliking Wike for that, please bury that emotion here. We don't have that in the electoral college. That's totally not our business. Your question was about Abuja. If your question was about Rivers, we'll be having another conversation, but you asked about Abuja. So when you are talking about Abuja, please forget his Rivers part. That's totally not in the conversation. And I'm not interested in Wike's personality. I'm interested in his functionality, in his position in governance, and so is the electoral college also. So we don't care about his personality, his emotional disposition, or what your own emotional bias towards it is. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Edie. Yakubu Aliyu. Yakubu Aliyu, you can unmute and ask your question. I've asked you to unmute.
Okay, thank you for granting me another opportunity. Mine is not more of a question; it's more of a contribution. We started a conversation with the ED at that time, but I felt that conversation should have continued, but because of interrupting the session, then I felt let me leave it to this period so that I can make my contribution if I'm allowed.
You can go straight to me.
Okay, so
Just try to keep it short. Thank you.
Wait, does the conversation have to do with this topic?
yes.
Okay.
Your background is noisy. Okay, so I think before Aliyu comes back, Ayodeji, please, you can unmute and ask your question.
Ayodeji. Please.
Ayodeji.
Ayodeji.
I'm sorry.
Modern name.
Please. You can go ahead. This time around.
It seems Ayodeji is no more there. Let's move to someone else.
I'm here, sir. I'm still here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you for this session.
Good evening.
So my question is about executive. I feel that the presidency, the executive class. Let me just take the presidency as an example. The presidency and the legislative arm, that is the Senate and the House of Representatives. I feel that there's kind of robust relationship, which is, in my own view, which is actually too much, right? Now, and the question now is, I hope this is not dangerous for we the citizen, because during the screening of the ministers, sometimes some of these people were asked to just take a bow and leave. So my question now is that kind of relationship, is that healthy for we the citizen? That is the judiciary just dancing to the tune of the executive. That's my question, sir.
The judiciary or the legislative?
Sorry, legislative. Don't mind me. That was a mistake.
Okay, thank you very much, Emmanuel. First and foremost, I'm happy you used the word "you feel." And citizens are granted that action, the ability to feel, but it doesn't necessarily make your feelings true. So because you feel something doesn't mean it's true. Now, I think it will be imperative to note that relationship always exists between the legislative and the executive anywhere in the world, be it US, be it UK, be it anywhere. There's always that relationship. And that relationship has to be there for them to be able to function, because if they are both at loggerheads, nothing will be achieved in the country. Now, you spoke about a few people that were asked to take a bow. The few people that were asked to take a bow are the same system that will be asked almost anywhere in the world. As long as you're a former member of Congress anywhere in the world and you're being screened for a particular position, there's a reason they call them distinguished and honorable in Nigeria. They actually will be seen as their time in the House, which they picked people and did other things. The House kind of forms solidarity to them and asks them to take a bow. It's not only in Nigeria, this is common or prevalent in other democracies. So far, you've served in the Congress or in the National Congress, Assembly, or Parliament. It's a common kind of thing, except you have grown so many enemies that they decide to face you. Is it healthy for our democracy? Dependent on what part you're looking at. So if the executive needs to get something done, it's very instrumental. Not necessarily must they agree all the time, but them having a strong, robust relationship is very necessary for any democracy. It means that faster things will be done as long as the legislative and the executive have a peaceful bond. So the only negative of it is that when it's something that is going to be done which is detrimental to the people of Nigeria, then maybe that robust relationship, if it's still continued on the basis of that is detrimental to the Nigerian people, then you have a problem. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Yudi, for that. The next question here is from Jimin Sontio. Thank you for the class. How can citizens ensure accountable governance? What should be the format of constructive criticism?
Get political education, and not from Facebook and Twitter. Read your constitution, understand it, know the laws, study the public procurement laws, study the National Integrity Act, study your constitution. That's what you have to do. Before then, keep quiet before you no grief for anybody. Thank you.
Okay, the next question here is from Oluwakeji. He says, what can be done to the House reps and House of Assembly members taking the executive roles of the executives, like the local government chairman? Like, what can be done to them, like House of Reps and House of Assembly taking executive roles of the executives, like the local government chairman?
First and foremost, nobody's taking the role of the executive, the local government chairman. I don't know on any parameter. When I mentioned constituency projects, I was talking about money that was supposed to go to the local government. I was not saying taking roles. I was talking about money exchanging. No, I don't think there's no role local government chairman has. So I don't know how to answer that question because it's not even in existence.
Okay, so Ahmad Mohammed, you can unmute and ask your question.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I want to know more about executive order and what are the examples of such orders that can be executed by the executive office holders in Nigeria without the
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ahmed. But while I was discussing, I gave an example with Executive Order 10 of 2020. If you want to go in depth into executive orders, it's something you can run off the phone. You can just Google them, the kinds of executive orders, because it's massive. It's not as simple. I in my head, I don't have that much massive information. But if you look into it, it's information that's available on the kind of executive orders the executive can give and the kind of jurisdictions they have. If you look into that, since you're interested in executive orders, I think it will help a lot with the matter. I gave an example with Executive Order 10 of 2020 by President Muhammadu Buhari, which stated autonomy of the local government and state legislature.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Ahmad, I believe is the same question you have in the chat box, so I would be jumping that. Then Emmanuel, you can unmute. Emmanuel Aji Safi. Sorry for murdering your name. You can unmute and speak. Emmanuel, are you there? Okay, if Emmanuel is not there,
Can you hear me now?
Okay,
Can
yeah,
you
we
hear
can
me?
hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, I think the network at my end is bad, so I'll just type the question on the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, fine, that's good. Then the next person here is Bilal. Bilal, what? You can unmute. Okay, please, Godwin, you can unmute and ask your question. Godwin Ogbiji.
Hello,
I have
good
asked.
evening.
Evening, Godwin.
Yes, so my question is actually in the chat box, but it hasn't been asked, that's why I raised my hand. My question is, do we see the civil service as different from the different arms of governance? Do we see them as different from governance? If we try to incorporate them into governance, do we say the civil service that's part of the executive, maybe that's with the MDAs, are also part of the executive, and those with the legislature are part of the legislature? That's my question.
Okay.
So yes, of course, the civil service is it's extended arms of the executive, but you can't call them the executive anywhere. They are just things that enable the executive to achieve their tools. So the civil service is a tool for the executive to achieve its function. It's nothing else more than that.
Okay. Thank you for that. The next question here is from Mohammed Ibrahim. My question is, what do you think of the residents of the FCT? Will they now be allowed their governor, or is the constitution flawed in denying them representation?
See, you know, when I hear questions like this, I know you've not read the Constitution. So for you to say the Constitution is flawed, the Capital Territory, the power in the Capital Territory, executive powers are vested in the president. The legislative powers of the Federal Capital Territory are vested in the National Assembly. The reason it doesn't have a State House of Assembly. And that's the way the Constitution is. It's not flawed. Most capitals in the world have that. But then they always have their local government chairman, mayor of Washington, mayor. Who even brings that argument? The FCT has to have a governor. The reason it has a name, Federal Capital Territory, it means it's a special place. That's what it means. So it's earmarked. It's not supposed to have a governor. You want to turn it into a state, it will lose its special status. So all these conversations, and I say the Constitution flawed by them not having a governor. They are not supposed to have a governor. The Constitution clearly states it shouldn't have a governor. So if we are to choose any side, we choose the side of the Constitution. You can choose the emotional side. That's your choice. You understand? But Constitution remains and remains law in Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay. The next question here is from Buhari. Who can we engage at the local government level in a situation where the state governor refused to conduct a local government election, but appointed TIC that is not constitutional? Who do we engage?
At that point, you voted your governor now. So at that point, there's not much anybody can do. Like what President Muhammadu Buhari did to cut that off was state that he will not be paying local government allocation to states that didn't have elected local government chairmen. So it forced quite a chain of local government elections across Nigeria. And I think that's the way to go when the federal turns at them. But you as a citizen, there's not much you can do apart from the choice of governor you pick. There's not much you can do to that. Thank you.
Okay. So this question is from Samuel John. In light of the recent developments, I've recently read an article that shows how diplomatic communities have started initiating a transition of funds in supporting accountability projects in Nigeria towards projects that has to do with democracy, projects that addresses hunger, enhance education, security, and improve health initiatives. Considering these shifts, it raises the question, does the existing framework utilize to ensure accountability through checkmate mechanisms and monitoring of elected government officials demonstrate inefficacy? If it does, I kindly request further elucidation on how accountability can be better enforced in relation to government oversight. Should I take it again?
First and foremost, I understand. You just use quite a few because now, if you can't have accountability, for you to have accountability, you need three necessary items. One, the government that's ready to follow due process. Two, an educated citizenry that understands the actual processes needed for accountability and follows through the entire budget, financial disbursement on any project. And then 3, an understanding of the issues between government. Who is perpetrating contracts? I believe it's private individuals. Government does not give contracts to itself now. Have you seen Ministry of Aviation giving contract to Ministry of Trade and Investment? That doesn't happen. So who does it give it to? Citizens. And the same citizens are accusing government of poor accountability. So let's be honest. We've created a crime scene in Nigeria, and we've supported quite a crime scene in Nigeria. So it means that we have supported the particular system in which occurs in Nigeria. And a lot of us are guilty because, let's be honest, if you put together the people in government in Nigeria, you probably won't have up to 40,000. That's entirely across Nigeria. And we're a country of 200 million people. So who is actually perpetrating the crime? Ask yourself, government or electorate? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the next question here is from Israel. For a possible political career in the future, how effective really is running for positions, offices in student-based associations as an undergraduate? Did you get that, Edie?
I think I'm not the nicest person to ask that question. Yes, I did. I'm not the nicest person to ask that question. I didn't participate in SUG. I've had nothing to do with SUG in my life. It's even a joke now. My SUG president looks up to me, kind of. So if you ask me, I'm kind of on the other side. I'm like, yeah, don't go there. Come on, you beat them later. And that's how I look at it. Hello?
Okay, so he said...
Did you hear me throughout?
Yes, loud and clear. So he said, I asked the question above because of the surprisingly high level of corruption, lackadaisical attitude, and abuse of power found in student government associations. So the next question here is from...
Why don't you repair it?
Okay.
I can't come to university and help you repair it now. Do you want me to come back to university? I'm just asking a question. No problem. Please continue.
Okay, so this question is from Alu Baju. Sorry if I murder your name. I can see MALSEC, I don't know what that means, in what quotas of norms to C corporations and S corporations call deputies to pass a bill in Cabinet of State-owned enterprise, SOES, or public enterprise. I really don't understand that, the abbreviations. So I think I'll just move to the next question. Sorry, if you're the one with this question, you can raise your hand. I'll ask you to unmute so you ask your question properly. Okay, so Emmanuel.
No. Peace. You're going to have You're going to have to pick one question left on the chat box and one more question for people to answer. We've kept people till 6:30. This 1 hour, 30 minutes. We must be considerate. So one question, chat box, one question person, and that's the end of the class.
Okay, so let me take the last question from the chat box. Thank God it's even the last question here. Outside the polls, how can a citizen take action to check the actions of an elected or appointed officer of the executive that is abusing the powers of their office? Having acquired literacy to know what should be and what shouldn't. Okay, these are three questions differently. So the first, but from the same person. Outside the polls, how can a citizen take action to check the actions of an elected or appointed officer of the executive that is abusing the powers of their office?
You can work with the State House of Assembly, you can work with the councillors, you can work with the National Assembly to impeach on any parameter. Secondly, you can wait to finish literacy before you start asking what kind of strength literacy is going to give you. You're anticipating a strength you've not yet even studied. So the ends are limitless.
Okay, so let me take Edie, sorry, let me take this question. While the federal executive arm has its
I'm not
agency.
allowing you, peace. Peace.
Okay.
Peace. I am not allowing you. I said one more question in the chat box. One more question in this thing. I'm firm with it. I'm not allowing you. I'm not circumventing that.
Okay. Elu Baju, you can unmute and ask your question. I've asked you to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Okay. Hello.
Yes, where you are, your background is a bit noisy, but we can hear you.
Yes, the roles of state enterprise, economic, the deviation and the portion of rural extensions and their pie. I mean, the extension of urban or person in the community. So this must be taken under the Act of the Constitution of Nigeria, and most public are not effective without the constituency or the due performance of the states and law orders. So is it under the, my question is, you hope you can get me.
Loud and clear.
In what quarters? Yes, in what quarters is from the C corporations or the S corporations is the internal activities passed upon to the cabinets or upon the appointed officers? That's what I mean.
In what? I don't understand you. You're saying in what quarters?
Yes.
Hello?
Did
you say in what quarters or in what quotas?
Yeah, in what quotas? We have public
Which one? You're saying yes to everything.
We have state
That's
enterprise.
not what I'm asking you. I said, did you say in what quarter or quota?
Yes, quotas.
You're saying quotas. And that is dependent on what state, dependent on quite a lot of things, depending on what particular state enterprise you're talking about, dependent on what state it is. It's dependent on a lot of factors. It's dependent mostly on a lot of factors. There's no unique one-line factor for saying this is the particular quota of a state-owned enterprise or anything. You can't say that's how it is or this how it is. Depends on what state you're talking about. Like what the Transport Corporation of Akwa Ibom will get is not what the Transport Corporation of Plateau State will get, which is not what the Transport Corporation of Jigawa will get. You can't make a blanket statement across for everybody and say this is 60%, this 30% here. You can't. So I would say it's open to interpretation depending on what state or what community you are in.
Okay, so I had to mute you because there was this feedback interference coming from your background. So I think with this, we have come to the end of today's class. We've kept you here for more than 2 hours, and job well done to all of you who are still on the call. And to Edie, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being with us to this very time. Thank you so much. And for those of you who, I think we have attended to virtually all the questions, just for Aliyu who wanted to make a comment, but I would advise that you can use the Telegram group to drop any further comments you have or further contributions or questions, and then we'll take the conversations from there. Again, class will continue tomorrow. For tomorrow, 5 p.m. please. 5 p.m. we start tomorrow's class. So please do well to follow up with informations on the Telegram group. Always go back to your Telegram group and check for informations, right? We still have class tomorrow at 5 p.m. So I'm going to give this opportunity to Edie. If you have any closing words for us, you have anything to say before we call it a day?
I'd rather say the class, people should just follow up. Most of the questions will be answered in other subsequent classes. You wouldn't, messages are not allowed on Telegram group. That's because we're also afraid of you people dumping funny things going on. I think Peace, you can look at you can discuss with Lisa and see whether we can just open it up for a few hours today and see what comes out of that. We hope you guys don't abuse that privilege.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Edie, for that. And as Elia said yesterday, right, you're going to be put into different group chats, which are going to be your pseudo parties. So please, as much as possible, as soon as the WhatsApp links are being dropped in the Telegram group, do well to join your party, do well to join the WhatsApp group. And again, after today's class, after every class, I believe that we have learned and then we have increased our political knowledge. Do well to share the knowledge out. You can share what you have learned with other people via your social media handles. And in doing that, please do well to also tag the college. And if at this point you still don't follow the college handle, please, you are wrong. You are wrong. Do well to follow all our handles, Electoral College Nigeria, on Instagram, on Twitter, and of course on Facebook. And then we can take the conversations. We can open up the conversations for other people out to be part of it, right? We look forward to seeing what you have learned being shared with others out there. So thank you so much for being here. And for Charlie, thank you so much for the opportunity to moderate this class today. Thank you so much. With this, I think we can call it a day. Let's have a restful night. Good night, guys.